Hey, everybody, welcome. How are you, Alex?
Hello, bang on time. Look at that.
Ah, to the
Yeah,
second.
good evening.
Love it. Love it. Yeah, welcome, gang, to the Lady and the Maverick. Joining us today, we have a paranormal experiencer and investigator, Michael Kopf. Michael has spent much of his life exploring the mysteries of consciousness through near death experience, astral travel, which I think we're going to chat about today, and encounters with the unexplained. His journey has taken him deep into the world of, energy healing, paranormal investigation, and the study of unseen forces around us. And better yet, it is Michael's birthday today. So let's welcome Michael on the show and happy birthday, Michael.
Thank
Happy birthday.
you.
Yeah, happy birthday, Michael.
Thanks for
Thank you.
spending
Here
some of
we
your
go.
birthday with us.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And I'm so looking forward to this.
Excellent. Thank you. Um,
Us
why don't
too.
we? Yeah, I know. Why don't we jump in? I know you, like ourselves, I think all three of us can say this, that we've had our paranormal experiences start as children. And so, it's you've had a lifelong of paranormal experiences. Yours started at 2, which was much younger than I think I was 5 or 6.
Yeah, and I mean, what's
I was 4.
interesting is you think about, you know, having these, and when we were growing up, you didn't share these. It was like, nope,
Mhm.
you,
Yep.
you kept it quiet, and now it's like, oh, you know, you're seeing this. Okay, cool. And it's like a whole new world
You
out
can
there.
talk about it and not
Yeah.
feel sized or
Hmm.
teased or yeah. It is interesting to see that progression and everything. I do marvel about that too. In fact, I was recently on an interview on a show you did, Michael, with Kelly. Schutz, if I'm pronouncing
Yes.
that correctly,
Schultz.
because everybody wants to add the L and there's no L. And we were talking about that, that many of our, all those of us who are experiencers have just learned to keep it quiet. You just didn't talk about it. So even my brother and sister to this day really have no idea what I was going through as a kid. Was it like that for you with your family?
Somewhat. I mean, my parents were open to it. And so,
Oh, that's cool.
but we didn't look at it at that point as being, oh, these are paranormal. We viewed them as metaphysical, spiritual experiences. So we were like,
Nice.
okay, that's really cool that you're in tune with this energies and that. And my sisters didn't quite get it, and so it kind of drove a wedge between us. And that's what I think. And they moved on, and I stayed with my parents, but I learned very quickly who you could talk to about it and who not to talk to about it, because there was teasing over things, and that even progressed as a teenager to young adult. It was
Yeah.
kind of interesting to see, the people who were around you a lot and you were considering like family, and then you mention this one thing and they're like, oh, we're going to tease you now. And it's like, really? I thought we were beyond that, but okay. Sure. And so you don't mention it anymore. And so, yeah, it's so nice now being in a world where we can talk about it, not to everybody, but to more people. And
But
so,
I used to use it to scare the other kids, though. Thought it was great fun. I
Very
did.
inventive, Alex.
I did. No, I did. I thought this is great fun, spook these kids out. Because I was going through what
That
you
is
went through.
funny.
Yeah,
uh,
I
I,
was.
I
I was horrible.
Oh, I had a different way to spook the kids.
Oh no.
Is
Do share.
well, I lived for a while in a suburb of Chicago, and so when it came to like people teasing me in class or something, like, one example was we were in history studying the Civil War, and they started teasing me that I was from the North, and I said, "Look, we kicked your butt once, we can do it again." And they looked at the teacher like, "Whatever." And the teacher was like, "Nope, they did. They whooped us." I was like, "Yep." Or if somebody was teasing me too hard, I would go, "I am from Chicago. We are famous for making people disappear."
Oh,
And they would like kind of get quiet.
they thought twice about teasing you.
Yep.
Oh, that's funny. Let me ask you, because on this topic, of us feeling we can speak openly now. You do speak openly about your astral travel experiences, your near-death experiences. I'm interested in your astral travel experiences. How did that even start?
That's the interesting thing, because I don't really have an answer to that, because one night I went to sleep and next thing I know, I'm visiting a ship with Ra and Isis on it, and then I go to this platform that's above the moon, and I'm out of the solar system, and and then it progressed to where I didn't need to go to the ship. I could go to the platform, and then it progressed to I didn't even need the platform. And so
Wow.
it just naturally happened.
Interesting. And so, was it your mind telling you to do this, or it just happened?
At first, I think I was feeling like something calling me, and so I would go to where I felt like my energy or my spirit was being drawn to.
Mm-hmm.
And other times it was, I would just get a feeling of something's happening over here. And so I would go check it out and just
Mm-hmm.
go investigate and see what's going on. And it kind of
Interesting.
progressed from there. And the interesting thing for me was the second I would get out of my body, I could be, before I even finished thinking about where I wanted to go, I'm already there. I learned to travel so fast that it's like before I could say the word I'm already there.
That's amazing. Now, is that something you could teach somebody else to do, or is yours so unique and happened so quick you probably couldn't even try to share it, could you?
I have led people on out of body experiences in the astral realm through guided meditation, and I just simply have in mind a safe place we're going to go and a safe space that's set aside to go
Okay,
and
good.
visit. So that's where we go. And I make sure that there's like a barrier to where if somebody gets curious, they get bounced back and where we are, because I didn't want to lose anybody out there. And
Oh,
so,
good Lord, yeah.
and or something happened to where something came in that wasn't supposed to come in. So I was always very careful about that. And I had pretty good success with it, but I kind of stepped away from leading people on it because I kind of started feeling like people weren't wanting to do it themselves. They were wanting me to do it
Oh, I
for
see.
them.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I was like, nope, that's
yeah.
not my
No,
role.
it's your
So
work to do. Yeah. Interesting. And how about, well, first of all, we should say hello to everybody. We have a good gang here tonight. Thanks for tuning in,
Yeah.
everybody. And Michael, you're getting happy birthday wishes. Yeah,
Yeah.
nice. Can you see the comments,
Elaine,
Michael?
Fiona, Pearl, Elaine, Pearl, Sue, Henry, and Dorinda.
Sue's here now,
Couldn't
and
see the
Henry.
comments.
Yeah,
I'll put
Dorinda.
them on
Hey,
screen
guys.
tonight.
Yeah. Um, Definitely. And what about the Michael, the out of body experiences? How is that different from your astral travel? Or is it?
Well, out of body experiences sometimes is something comes and pulls me out and takes me somewhere. And so that's a bit of a difference. And that happens where I could be sitting at my computer typing something and I'll blink, and next thing I know, like a whole paragraph has been typed in. And I'm like, where did this paragraph come from? How did I write that so
Wow.
fast?
You think it
And
was channeled, maybe, without your awareness?
well, some of it is channeled memory, and some of it I think is they pulled me out to do something. So the
Mm-hmm.
what they put in my place finished what I was working on, and when I came back, I was like, okay, oh wow, okay, and able to be like, okay, great, now let's move on. And sometimes it's I don't even notice that it happens. And one example is I was doing a podcast show and I was hosting and I was talking with someone, and while they were answering, in the middle of their answer, I dazed out, and in like a matter of like, to me, it seemed like 30 seconds, I'm looking at the chat room and everyone's like, "Oh, look, Michael's doing an out of body. He's been pulled out. He's doing a 20
Oh,
and back." And I was like,
wow.
"What?" I was like, I didn't even notice I was gone. And so moments like that can happen because their time is different from our time. So, yeah, the main difference I would say, to kind of answer your question more clearly, is the out of body experiences are mostly where I'm pulled out of my body, where the astral travel is I go on my own.
Yeah. With the outer body,
Right.
you use the word they. Who would they be, would you think?
Well, so I don't know
That
if
could be
you
a
guys.
big one.
It is a loaded question
I
because
know it.
I don't know if your guests are familiar with the secret space program, and it's a covert organization, and they at times will pull me out to do stuff on the astral where different alien races can do the same thing, and it's all umbrellaed under, we call it, the programs, and they use it, everybody uses it, both sides. And I'm trying to phrase this in a way to where I don't freak everybody out and make them like paranoid to go to sleep. Is they use certain people that have certain gifts to go, and like, so if I have the ability to astral travel, so they'll use me because I can go on the astral, and they'll have me do missions, and then I come back and I have no idea what these are. They erase your memory.
Right, right.
And so,
Michael, how did this
yeah.
start? How did you even get connected with that program? Or did they choose you?
I was chosen from
Yeah,
birth,
I had a sense
and
about that. Yeah.
they say that we did soul contracts before we were born, is
Hmm.
how they do this. And um, yeah, and I just want to take a second in the story because I was noticing the chat room.
Hmm.
Elaine is talking about Tony Rodriguez.
Yes.
That is actually who
Yeah.
helped me figure out that's what I was had memories of, because I didn't know where certain memories were coming from, stuff that was going on. And he was one of those that helped put me on the path of discovering this was happening to me. So yeah, I owe a lot to Tony, even though we're not like best friends and chat all the time, but I when I have him on my shows, I do thank him for coming forward because it gave me the insight to look within and find out what I was going through. And so, yeah, if it wasn't for people like him coming forward, I don't think a lot of people would understand what's going on and everything. And so I completely lost what question you asked me.
I'm gonna,
I might have lost it too.
I'm,
Alex, do you remember?
I'm gonna, I want, no, I don't. I want to ask you a question. This happened to me quite a lot. You're out driving, whether it be a car, a truck, whatever it is, and you're driving along, and you really don't know how you got to where you got to be. So you haven't run anyone over, you haven't crashed into anybody, but you're just away with the fairies. It's happened to me all the time. And I'm sure it happens to lots of other people as well. It's as though, yeah, it's like, I don't know if you're leaving somewhere, but for some reason you're on a different planet, but you're still driving and you get to the place where you want to be without any mishaps. Do you understand?
I wonder if that's considered a time
don't
slip.
Well, it could be because it used to happen to me quite a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Alex, you're gonna find this very interesting. I had that happen to me once.
Good.
When I was going to college. I was visiting my parents and I was staying at their house and I was meeting a friend back at the university, and it's a 45-minute drive to get there. And I'm driving down this one road and I get on the highway, and the next thing I know, I'm pulling into the parking lot of my friend's house. To me, it seemed like I made that 45-minute drive in like 10 minutes. And
exactly,
no idea how I got there so fast and seemingly so fast, because to me, I was missing time and I have no idea what was going on in those moments. But I do remember when I stopped the car in the parking spot, I kind of just closed my eyes and looked up and said, whoever drove me here, thank you, because I have no memory of getting here. So thank you for not hitting anybody. Thank you for not crashing my car. And thank you for getting me here safely.
Even happened when I used to drive trucks, big trucks. I think, how on earth did I get to this place? Well, you don't tell anyone. But
well, and one thing I noticed too, if you go on long drives and the scenery, like say you're in the Midwest where it's a lot of fields, not a lot of towns on the highways, I found that after a while when you're driving, if you don't have music on or something, you will start to zone out and go into like what I call auto drive, in which case you're like not present, but your body knows what to do for a stretch until you like snap out of it. But yeah, there is a lot of times where the missing time factor makes it really interesting in that it could be a time skip or it could be a jump in timeline to where in one timeline I'm leaving, but in another timeline I'm already there, and so it's like
so that liminal space in between. Interesting.
Yeah, so
it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen anymore. I have to put that out in case the old Bill are watching or somebody. It don't happen anymore.
Yeah.
It's going back a
Can
few
I
years, but
share?
um,
I've had unusual experiences in that when I'm driving. It's funny how we're talking about this stuff happening while we're driving. I'll get in. I'll get in my car, and as soon as I sit there, two things could happen. Either I look at it and it feels extremely alien to me, like, what is this vehicle? What is this? You know, there's almost like a second of not believing I have this technology that I'm sitting in this car. And then the other times it's happened where it's the reverse of that. I'll sit in the car and I'll look at it and I'll go, wow, this is kind of antiquated, this whole thing. Like I'm used to more of a high tech vehicle. So it's very strange how that happens. And it will just come like that. The minute I sit in the car, I'll have that either familiarity of wanting more technology, going, okay, this doesn't feel like I'm normally used to, and or as though it's antiquated. Like, you know, what is this vehicle? Why am I sitting here? Why aren't I in a horse and buggy? That
Yeah.
kind of thing. Yeah.
What's interesting, Kathy, is I didn't even notice this, but when I was driving, a friend pointed out, and I have auto, so you know the gear shit that you have to change the gears to the drive or reverse. I rest my hand on it like this,
I do too.
and I'll tilt my hand forward when I accelerate, and I tilt my hand back when I brake, and I tilt my hand to whichever way I'm turning, and I don't even realize I'm doing this. But
It's almost like you're toggling.
one of the other things I'll do is I'll go like this, like I'm punching in like stuff on the ceiling, buttons, and on the dash I'll point forward and I'll start like pushing in like I'm putting coordinates in. And a friend was like, "Were you a pilot?" And I was like, "Not in this life that I know of. In past lives I was, but in this life I'm not a pilot. Why?" And he goes, "You're acting like a pilot."
Oh,
And I go,
interesting.
"What do you mean?" And he goes, "When you're like going up above, that would be pilots would do that to like start the engines
Yeah.
or
yeah,
Oh, interesting.
activate systems." And he's like,
You've
"Where
been
do
in
you
a
think you
cockpit of
are?"
some kind.
Yeah. And so I was like, "Well, I guess I do consider my driver's seat of my car my cockpit." And so he's like, "Yeah." And I was talking to a friend about it in the programs, and they said, "Yeah, that's kind of one of the signs of being in the programs is you have bleed through where you start acting like you're flying a ship, even though you're driving a car."
Dang. Oh my gosh.
something to think
Um,
about, isn't it?
wow. Wow.
Yeah,
Hmm.
Now, what kind of alien beings are you on ship with when you go? Are you
it
able to tell or see them?
it depends because the group that I work with, the councils that I work are several. So it could be Palladian, Andromedan, Syrian, Lyran, um,
Interesting.
Draco, some Dracos. There's a particular group that works different from the Alpha Dracos and those. And that's one of the things too that I had to learn from myself is my first memories I had was like, okay, Palladian's good, Reptilian's bad,
Hmm.
Andromedan's good, and it's like Zeta's bad, and it's like, yeah, I had a knowledge of when I would see their ships, I'd be like, that's bad, that's good.
So you
And
intuitively knew. Wow.
then I started to learn with the help of others that I can't do that. I can't look at a reptilian ship and go, okay, we got to be prepared to fire. That's a bad ship because they're good ones. And I had to reshape everything that I knew because even Palladians have what we would consider bad
Okay.
factions within them and
Yeah.
had to do some serious mind work and shadow work around not judging the alien races based on experiences with one faction.
Mhm. Wow. Now, would you or have you be able to sketch what some of these alien races look like
To be
from your
honest,
memory?
I would have to see a picture of,
Okay.
because the way my memory works is it is locked off
Ah.
until something triggers it, and when it's necessary in
Mhm.
that moment, I
Mhm.
can share experiences and I can describe what's going on. But then the second that it's done, my memory is like, okay, we don't need this now. So it locks it back away and puts in, information that I need in the moment. And so that was one of the challenges in writing my book that I wrote in the Awakening series about this journey of trying to unlock memories of working in these programs. Is I don't know what is program and what is not program memory wise. And so that's when I wrote the book, I had to seriously sit back and look at going, what can I prove memory wise? And what is something that is because somebody told me that's what they saw me do? And if it's something they saw me do, I didn't put it in because if I don't resonate with it, I have to still try and figure out where and how this is coming through. And I didn't want to be putting false information in my books.
So the Awakenings, that was a 4-book series, Michael, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Do you want to share the titles and where maybe people can get those books?
All my books are available at Amazon.com. I have an author's page, so you can just look up my name and you'll find them all. But
Okay.
the first book is Awakening My Journey into the Paranormal, and it's the aspect of my paranormal life and how I got into it and what experiences I've had. And then the second book in the series is Awakening, a journey into of hidden discoveries, and it's my 3-year journey into it. And what I did also with the first two books, because I have two podcast shows that I host around these topics, I put the origin story and how the podcast came about in the books that the shows correlate to. So, for example, my paranormal show, as it started out being the energy that surrounds us, its origin story is in The Awakening, My Journey into the Paranormal. Now, Riding Through the Unknown is the esoteric disclosure book. And so that book I put in Awakening, a Journey of Hidden Discoveries, because that's where, to me, it fits in. And then I was thinking about it, and I had written a section about what it's like to grow up in metaphysics and what all these topics means, because people talk about like mirrors and what they stand for and what they can show you. And I realized nobody really knows all of these topics. We just kind of mention them and move on. And so in my book, Awakening, a Journey into the Metaphysics, I actually sit down and go over these metaphysical topics and how they related to me in my life, so that it kind of shapes where my explanation's coming from, so it makes more sense to everyone. And then the last book, The Awakening, A Glimmer into Who I Am, that is a book where I share places that I've traveled to or experiences as a child and just life in general, just a basic me. So, in actuality, The Awakening was one book about me that I broke into four aspects of me. So, you get a choice, and because The Glimmer into Who I Am was my personal book, I had lost my dad in 2023,
Remember that?
and
Yeah.
I just kind of felt like I wanted to write a book to tribute to him, but I could never get it started, and it didn't feel right at the time. But I kept getting drawn to put pictures of my dad in this book. And so I thought, well, since this is a glimpse into my life and who I am, the last two chapters are the most unique chapters that I actually did because it's like one paragraph writing. The rest of the chapter is photographs. And so the first of the two chapters is photographs of me as a child and teenager, young adult to today. So it's like you get to see me growing up in photo form. And then the last chapter was my dad. And so I put photos of him and what he went through as a child to when I knew him and the adventures that we shared. And it was my way of just kind of acknowledging him and saying, he's still around and you can see his story and you can like look through the pictures and
Yeah.
be like, wow. And if you want to know, stuff about him, you can say to me, hey, in your book, there's this photo. And I'm like, yeah, I can tell you what I know about the photo. And if it's before I was born, if I don't know the stories, then I'll just be like, yeah, that was before I was born. And I just, that's who he was and everything. And then I finished with that series and decided that was all I really wanted to do with that series. And I may do second editions by adding experiences
Okay, yeah.
that come up later and as life goes on, because those books bring you to my current life right now. Well, current as of last year. But this year I decided to do something a little different and branch out so my books don't become just a conglomeration of like several books of the same style.
Right, right.
And so I created a book, Deeper Insights into the Mind of Michael. And I took topics that were somewhat mentioned in prior books and topics that weren't, and said, these topics, I feel we really ought to be looking deeper into. We ought not to just blindly, accept these truths. And the ironic thing is, what's funny about it is, I actually have a chapter in the book called More Truths We Blindly Accept. And
Uh,
one of those is I point out, like, an example of a truth that we blindly accept is grass is green. Why do we think grass is green? Because that's what scientists told us. And I said, but how do they know? And somebody said, well, the frequency of green is what's being reflected back. So we call it green. And when she told me that, I just let it go. But in the book, I go, well, how do the scientists know what the frequency of green is? And, it's stuff like that to where we take so many things at face value just because somebody with credentials told us that's what it is, or because our parents told us that's what it is, society told us. And so it's my way of saying, look, maybe it's not what, and if this isn't so, what else isn't so? And I made a point of, also saying, with the grass that it's, we don't know if it's green or not. I said, I rather look at the color of what green as we call it than just a frequency code because it is prettier. So I'll accept that blind truth just on aesthetics. And that I think is something that I think, people, will gravitate towards and be like, yeah, am I okay, choosing to believe in this because it's nicer than the alternative? And there's nothing wrong with that. So everybody can, is a choice to believe and choose what they believe and don't need to sit there and think, oh, because this could be a lie, I need to find the truth and I need to stop believing this. No, that's not what's being said at all. It's just opening your mind. And it is available on Amazon as well. And I actually designed the cover for this one. Oops. Is
Oops.
it visible? Or did I just? Oh, there it is. And the one thing that I do, and my illustrator, when she was doing book covers with me, really enjoyed is every cover actually has Easter eggs on it. And what I mean by that is images that you'll see on the cover that you may not be noticing that you're seeing are topics that are in that book. And so it's kind of like my way of going, look at this really nice cover. Now, open the book to see what this cover is really talking about and drawing people in. And that's my goal with writing. And I kind of noticed somebody was asking if I live in Atlanta, and I
Yeah.
actually live in Texas. So I'm not sure who I remind you of in Atlanta, but
I think it
that's
was her
not.
Yeah.
brother.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's not
It's
me.
it's it's Anne. It's her brother. I think her brother lives in. I get it up again now. I think her brother lives in Atlanta. Yeah. So you don't come from Atlanta, Michael?
I
No,
don't.
Texas.
I have visited a couple times, but I've never lived there.
Yeah.
I
Are there
visited
any
once for
other
3 hours
questions?
catching up a plane.
Yeah.
I did have a cup. Hang on, I will.
Yeah. It seems like we've
Um,
had a few come through. Folks are asking for us
ah,
to answer.
not not quite a way with the fairies. I feel it's more of a safe but trance-like state. I've done that several times. Yeah, it's like a trance state. Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree with that.
Mhm.
It's just a
Mhm.
bit
yeah.
weird. And talking about weird, a big black. I saw something black go across the front of you, Kathy, like a big
Oh God,
shadow. If
not
anyone else
again.
saw it,
Oh goodness.
yeah, but it could have been. It
Oh
could have been
Lordy.
because sometimes we go
Have to
covered,
look
don't we?
for
You
that
get
on
covered.
replay.
Have to
Well,
look for it. It's very quick, very quick.
and
Mm.
I remember an episode where I was interviewing Kathy, and the light kept getting brighter and dimmer and brighter and dimmer throughout the entire
Yep.
interview,
Yeah.
and there were
That
no
happens
clouds
here.
out.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, there definitely are light anomalies that happen in this house. And I've had it happen with numerous guests doing interviews myself with other folks and me on their shows. And yeah, it just, I'll become very bright, then I get very dark. and I'm not quite. What
And
do you think
we've
that
also
would
had the
be,
rush.
Michael?
We've also had the
What were
rushing
your
sounds
thoughts on
going
that?
through as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do
You
you
know,
think, Michael, is a not light anomaly issue?
I think it's just and it's a way of the energies acknowledging, as we're talking about, light energy and frequencies. It's, I think, a way that the energies that are around us, and I put it that way instead of saying spirits or ghosts because they're not
Right.
always ghosts. It's just their way of saying, yes, we're here. They mean no harm because it's not like they, blank out the lights and you're like, oh, now I have no power. I paid the power bill, but there's no power. What's going on? Why can't, and nobody can figure it out? They're not doing anything harmful. So I would just say, yeah, they're just having some fun and just saying, yes, we're here. Thank you for talking about us.
Yeah, I have that sense, Michael. That makes sense to me. Mike
yeah.
has an interesting comment. I don't know if you can see it, Michael. Mike Millward. Yeah.
I was asked what the sound of
Right.
yellow smells like. Yeah. What is truth?
Exactly.
That
Good one.
is true. Is they do say that colors have a scent, and I haven't really sat down really to figure it out, like, and go, okay, yeah, that smells brown or that smells black. And so it is amazing. I have heard of people doing that, and that is a way that some blind people can ascertain when they're picking clothes out. It is a sense of one method that they have. And so that is an interesting phenomenon. And there was an earlier question too that I don't know that I could delve into with enough time that's left, but Stacy Swan was asking, she was stating, I don't do that, but I do have vivid past life dreams that I have questions about. Past life
Oh yeah,
dreams
yeah.
are hard to delve into without knowing what the dreams are about and knowing, and getting a sense of where things are going on and why that would be coming forward. But normally, I would say from my experience, when you have a past life dream, it's because something in your life that's happening now is coming up again from the past, and it's a way of the universe and your soul memory saying, this is what we did before. Now we're having a chance to, look at it again and make a different choice. So let's make a different choice and see what we can learn this time and maybe be done with it, or, maybe have to do it again. But they're learning experiences and they're windows to the past to help us into the future. And so the other tricky thing too, though, is it was mentioned earlier, someone pointed out that time is an illusion, and that's very true. Is
Mm.
in reality, our past, present, and future is happening right now in this very moment. So when you look at the world in that aspect, your past lives are happening now. And so that could be why they're coming up now for you to look at as well. And it could be simply just so you have an awareness where something you do, this is where you learned it from. And so there is nothing to work on. It could just
Mhm.
be an awareness. And so that's why I
Mm.
say it's really hard to answer what they mean without context. And that would have to pretty much probably be a show unto itself.
Go. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've had
There's another
past life recall. I've
another
had some
another
dreams.
question for man. Again, it's a rare but recognized medical condition. The word for when a person smells a color or experience any blending of the senses is synesthesia.
Synesthesia.
Yeah,
Never heard, right.
yeah,
Never heard that
Mm.
one before.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard that, and I think Anderson Mark, I think has a question for
yeah.
For
you.
me,
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
thank
Yeah.
you for pulling that, for noticing that. I was going to jump in with that. Thanks, Mark. He's asking, do I think there is a link between the DMT beings and aliens? I have a personal experience with DMT. I was staying with a dear friend. Oh, Michael, I was actually with Ig. Um, yeah, I was with Ig,
Ig,
staying
yeah,
with
I
him in,
remember.
yeah, from our trip, staying with him in Oregon. And we did a very sacred ceremony, both doing DMT. So it wasn't like we were just sitting around partying and dropping DMT. And
Yeah, because
we
that's
made
what
it
all
very
kids are doing
sacred.
now.
Can you
And
explain what DMT is? Can
DMT,
you explain what DMT is? Because I've not
it,
heard of it.
I don't know what the initials stand for. It's a type of
Oh,
hallucinogenic
okay.
drug, I guess, so to
Actually,
speak.
I can explain. DMT is so like when you look at marijuana, there is
Yeah.
the healthy strain, and then there's the one little drug that's taken out of it that makes it so addictive and everything. Well, DMT is a part of like ayahuasca to
Mhm.
where you
Oh,
get
right.
the
Okay.
effects
It's a
of
hallucinogen.
ayahuasca, but you don't get the like purging and all the other stuff that goes with it. It's
And I've
Right.
done ayahuasca as well, and that's not pretty.
Oh,
That's
well,
that's
you can carry on
now.
there,
Have
Kathy.
you
Now we
done?
know what it is.
Yeah, thank you
yeah,
for that. Yes, Mark. In fact, a lot of studies out there in regards to that.
Oh,
I had two beings come in the room. My friend somewhat kind of fell asleep. I'm not sure what his experience was, but I was in an awake state, and these two beings came in from what was like a window area, and they were holding these. I guess what we would look at it and go, looks like a laptop, or it looks like a what do you call them? A little pad or something. And they came over to me and they were working on me, and
iPad.
they
Yeah.
were probably, they weren't real small grays, but they were probably like a mid-size gray. From looking at them, that's what I saw. Now, whether or not they presented themselves to look that way, because I knew what that
Hmm.
would be, a gray, and I'm familiar with that, I don't know. But a lot of people report seeing that same type of being when they do the DMT. And as I said, different studies are out there with that findings, Mark. It was interesting because they did work on me. So I did feel them kind of working on me. Then at some point, I think I did fall asleep. But no, I can picture them clear as day in my mind. Yeah, it's interesting. Have you ever done any of that, Michael? Either the ayahuasca or DMT?
I have wanted to, but I haven't like ingested. But with that, there is a caveat. I had the ability to call in, like I can create the energy of DMT, so I can send myself without actually ingesting DMT
Okay,
into
yeah.
a DMT
Uh-huh.
state. But I don't do that very often because one, I'm usually, if I'm by myself and something happens, I don't know how I'm going to explain to like somebody in the medical field or somebody, that's around
Oh.
that finds me and going, oh yeah, I'm fine. I'm just going through this experience and, everything's okay. I know I look like I'm probably freaking out, but I'm really not. And or something. And it's like, so I'm very cautious of to do it if I do it around people that I trust that know me,
Yeah.
and so they
And
know how
that's how
to
I did
react.
it. Yeah. Yeah. You know what? One and done with both. I would never do an ayahuasca ceremony again. I will never do DMT again. Uh, it just they're very intense experiences.
Yeah.
And I knew my guides have often said to me that I will encounter people that will take me out of my comfort zone. And let me tell you, both those experiences took me way out of my comfort zone. I'm glad I did it. They were beautiful experiences, but I probably would never do it again. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll say the reason too why ayahuasca is not like high on my list right now is I saw someone putting it together, like making the concoction,
Oh.
and I was like, yeah, no,
It's pretty
nope.
nasty.
I'm like, I could see why people are vomiting and not
Oh,
gonna
yeah.
happen. Just
Oh,
nope.
God. Yeah. And plus, there's a lot of prep work. There was a whole month that we had to have a very strict diet. We couldn't even wear anything that had a fragrance. You had to use a certain type of, you know, uh, soap to clean your clothes with. I mean, it was a very rigorous getting yourself ready to have the experience because you're actually having the experience with Gaia, with Mother Earth. That's part of the ceremony, that you're one with her, and that truly was the case. It was amazing, but there's a lot to it. You just don't casually do ayahuasca, or you shouldn't, better yet, because you could have a very bad experience.
Right.
um, we had a wonderful shaman, who, part of her year, she does live in the Amazon jungle. She makes her own ayahuasca, living with her teacher. And so, yeah, it was, I
Thanks
felt
for
safe there.
explaining. Because thanks for explaining that, because I didn't know, and maybe others didn't know what it meant. DMT. Ah, I remember that.
Mhm.
Yeah, and one
Here
of the
come the
things
noises. Come
too,
the noises.
one of the things too that I find interesting, in hearing these experiences is I don't mean to discredit experiences or make it sound like you did more than you really needed to, but I had the mindset of so that entire month and all that ritual really was putting your intention in alignment.
Mhm.
So you probably could have done that maybe in like 20 minutes, going, okay, this is
Mhm.
the intention of what I want. This is,
Yeah.
I'm preparing myself and in the right mindset. But people here don't believe stuff that happens that way. Like if I said, oh, in 5 minutes, we can do out of body experience and, we'll go on this grand adventure into the outer reaches of the universe. And everyone's like, yeah, okay, whatever, it, I can't do that, or no, it's not that easy, and we have all these mental things that society has programmed us
Yes.
to talk us out of experiences to where when someone says, oh, it took me a month to prepare myself for this and a month of doing this,
Yeah, I was questioning a
people are
lot of
like,
that, Michael.
oh, this person's done incredible. And I want to hear this because they did it the right way. It's like, yeah, it's
Hmm.
just funny how we're programmed to where if there's ritual involved, we pay more attention to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think too that's part of the shaman's training is it is a ritualistic experience that she prepares for as well. So it's multi-level, layered, I would say. But you're right. I often found myself in the middle of this preparation thinking, why do I have to go through all this? But I did. I was good. But yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
and part of it too is so whenever you're doing shadow work or dark nighting or going on like ayahuasca and all these other like mind altering experiences, you also have to realize there's two things that are going to happen guaranteed. And one is you're going to see yourself in a new reality and you're going to see reality bend and be free of all the restraints that we put on it. And second is you're going to face your demons. And by that, I don't mean like, oh, these evil entities. I mean, you're going to look at things about yourself that you don't like and that you don't ever want to look at because you're like, this is the worst of me. I never want to look at it, never want to bring it to light. I just want to bury it and use the light to keep me up and everything. And when you go in these altered states, you are giving permission to all those aspects of yourself to come up and say, now it's my turn. And you're going to see me for me. And you're going to be like, oh, crap. So that's another reason why, too, I don't recommend without people around you that you trust and being truly, truly intentionally prepared to face these because it can really mess with your mind. And if you're
Oh,
not,
absolutely. Hmm.
in a good headspace going into it, you could come out worse than when you went in.
Yeah, it's happened. Absolutely. I,
Hmm.
I
I think
worked very
I'll give that a
closely.
miss then.
I'm sorry.
I said, I
What did you
think I'll
say?
give that a miss.
Okay. Yeah,
I said,
yeah, I would never do it again.
Yeah.
That's
mhm.
that.
But
Never do it again.
one thing I will say though, and I don't mean this towards you, Alex, I'm just using it as an example because I used to be that way. And if somebody said, oh, you're going to face your shadows or your inner demons, I was like, oh, hell no. I was like, nope. But then I started to realize when I was like surviving dark nights and surviving, and doing the shadow work, we make it much worse than what it is. And we envision things to be extremes in our minds. And so I could go into a ayahuasca trip and go, oh my gosh, I'm seeing myself as a master manipulator. Well, but then I'm like, yeah, I know that's a part of me because it's happened in my family history. There are some. And so I know, yeah, I had the choice to become that, but I also had the choice not to. And I choose not to. And that choice override. And so it's like, yeah, I just did shadow work. It can be that easy. And we just have to take our mental out of it to where we think, oh my God, I'm going to be seeing, the worst of me. Well, the worst of you could be you turned your back on someone that needed your help. There's nothing wrong with that. If that's the worst
Mm.
you did, then kudos to you. You have lived an awesome life. But it doesn't make you a bad person because you turned your back on one person that needed your help. Because one, we don't know the circumstances, and two, that may be what that person needed to get the help that
Exactly.
they needed.
Right.
Mm.
It took them to that
Yeah.
next
So
level. Yeah.
you actually get it was a blessing for that other person.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Now, Michael, question for you. In doing shadow work, because I'm asking this from experience for myself. Do you ever deal with a past life trauma that you've carried forward in this lifetime that you had to go back, you had to re-experience to have that dark night of the soul, to let that experience go through you and have you realize, you had to experience that to release it, for me personally, I was carrying a lot of guilt around this experience. And it was amazing how once I had the, relived the death, relived that past life, I was able to let all of that I was carrying go. And you could just sense a difference. In your shadow work, do you deal with any past life issues that come up around the shadows?
I do. It happens a lot, and fortunately, one thing that I was taught myself in my on a hero's journey that I was under at the time of trying to fix myself because I thought I was broken because of something that happened in my childhood. I learned a bunch of healing modalities and different types of perspective modalities to where I can look at situations in my life and go, am I looking at this the right way, or what's a different way to look at it? And one of those aspects was a technique called timeline therapy. And
Oh,
what that is so let's say, hypothetically, I have a pattern of I go on 3 dates and then I just disappear. Doesn't matter what's going on with the dates. It's the third date. Once it happens, it's over. Well, that could be, this life, could be past life. So I go to the root decision in my life, whether current or past, where I made that choice. If I don't like this person after 3 dates, it's over. Or, well, this person, I think we're hitting it off, but she left me after the third date, or he left me because I was a female in this life, vice versa. But, something happened that it was the third date. So I trained, I implanted in that timeline, you get 3 dates and then that's it. And so I then, in timeline therapy, am like, okay, I'm looking at this situation and I go, well, this decision was made based on this experience, but not all experiences are the same. So, therefore, this pattern doesn't serve me because it's limiting my future self. And you start to look at, you look at all the negative, you can see and feel all the negatives, but then you look at the positives because in this session, you look at the event, but then you go like 20, 30 minutes, an hour prior to that event and see what's going on that triggered this event. So it may not have been anything to do with me. Let's say, for example, I was in a relationship with the woman and she broke it off with me and said she, wants nothing to do with me, never see me again after the third date. Well, going prior to the event, I see her dad saying, you've been betrothed to this person, you're going to marry him, or you're going to be disowned, you're going to lose everything, and you will be destitute. Well, nobody wants that. That's a lot of pressure on her. So, what does she do? She breaks up with me because she can't handle that pressure. And so, it was nothing to do with me. And so then I see the positive of that and going, oh, she was reacting to a conversation with her dad. I understand. It wasn't anything I had done. It wasn't me. And so I get that positive. And then I look at after the event, like she's in tears and it's like I can see it really hurt her. And I was really hurt. So I see the positives of that. Well, then we implant, and one of the techniques is you can tap yourself somewhere to lock in that implant, or you can just say, yeah, this is locked in mentally. And then you pull yourself into the present moment and you realize you're feeling different and something has changed, but you don't know what it is. And let's say I'm dating someone and we're about to go on the proverbial third date. I go on the third date and we're like, hey, we're having a lot of fun, we should do this again, let's keep going. And she may say, yeah, let's do it, let's get together tomorrow. And you get together tomorrow and you look and you're like, you step out of the car and you start the fourth date and your mind will go, oh my God, I'm on a fourth date. I've broken that pattern.
yeah, there you go.
And so that's what it does. And so what I do with, and why I bring that up is when I do shadow work, is I'll look at what is the root cause of what's causing this situation, what positives can I bring in to it, and then I come out the other end with, instead of the negatives calling all the shots, it's the positives calling all the shots. And so I can either instantly feel it's changed, or when I was doing my presentation on the hero's journey, there were moments where I could say, you may be in a, like somebody may walk up to me and go, "Hey, I know we had 3 dates in the past. We were dating in the past, and it was 3 dates, we'll say. But I'd really like to go on a date again and give us another chance." Well, that would be number four. And so I can see, oh, this shadow work worked. Even though I'm not done with that shadow work, I can see that what I'm doing is working, and continue with the hero's journey part of it, or end it and say, I've accomplished what I wanted to accomplish for now, and I can go back and address it later if I need to. But yeah, and so shadow work draws on past lives, current lives, and actually, Kathy, this one's going to possibly surprise you, your future lives.
Really? How
I mean,
so?
well, because, so think about it again. If everything is happening in this one moment, the future, the past, and the present, and a decision you're about to make, let's say, hypothetically, me saying, okay, I have 2 books in the works, and so that would make 8 books. And I'm thinking, well, maybe that's all I want to write now, and I'll just write those 8 books and be done, and I'll start to focus on something else. Future me is like, oh wait, we have so much more to tell. We have so much more to explore. Why did I stop at 8? And it will come back into today as sitting there, and it'll start gnawing at you, going, well, why am I only deciding 8? Why am I stopping to write it? It was bringing me so much joy. Why am I quitting that? Why am I talking myself out of book 9 or book 12?
Yeah.
Why am I limiting myself to 8? And then, we'll start to do shadow work on it, looking at it. And we may come out and go, hey, you know what? I'm going to take a break, but I do intend to do 9, 10, 11, 12, or however many books. But I am going to continue writing, but maybe just not in this moment. So your future self is now benefiting, going, oh, we're writing more. Our stories are going, we're flowing out, we're doing that work, that mission part. And so that's why I say our future selves can impact us, because there's no reason in the present moment to be going, why am I stopping at 8 books? I shouldn't, that's not a normal thought when you're in the writing process, to start to question, why am I stopping? And
Mm-hmm.
we don't realize that that's our future talking to us in the present.
Mm.
Wow. Yeah, isn't it funny? We don't, well, I'll just speak for myself. Your normal thought process doesn't always take you to the future. We're so, set on being in the present, or working on things that have already happened in our past. And so, yeah, interesting that you carry it forward like that to the future, and I can see how that will impact all of it. Past, present, future. Interesting. And that would be under the guise of shadow work, Michael.
I view it as, well, the effect that you look at it and start, dissecting, so to speak, what is going on, what's causing it and everything. That's the shadow work. Having the thought itself, that's just you making a choice, do I want to look at this or not? And so if you decide not, you're not going to do the shadow work. But if you decide
Mhm.
to look at it, yeah, it could lead to shadow work. And one aspect of shadow work that a lot of people don't realize is, so let's take it, an example is I have no photos of any of my paranormal investigations in book 1 of The Awakening. And everyone's like, "Oh, you should totally put photos in." Well, the second edition, put photos in. Well, let's say I'm about to write, the second edition to book 1 because I have more experiences, more investigations under my belt to write about. Well, I look at it and go, huh, should I add photos or not? And I go, well, let's see what would happen if I did add photos. Now I'm starting the shadow work, and I look at it and I'm like, well, this is the reasoning why I didn't put photos in the first book. The first book sold really well. People complimented my writing, making it paint the picture of where I was.
Yeah.
So why do I want to change that? That was a success. And so I decide I'm not going to add photos in the second edition either. I'm just going to continue the book as it was. That is a shadow work to where, yeah, I made no change in my life, but I honored myself and looked at both options and decided I don't need to change it. That's shadow work too. Shadow work
Interesting.
isn't always making changes. Sometimes it's validating changes we've already made or choices that we've already made.
Wow. That's deep. I wanted to say to the audience, for those who may not know this, Michael and I first met when we joined the same trip in Egypt with William Henry and his wife Claire. That's where I first met Michael in 2014. Gosh. And it's interesting because we had a little bit of a chat about this before the show, is that today's Michael's birthday. When we were on that trip in Egypt together, we celebrated Michael's birthday. I think it was the last day on the ship. Was it, Michael? We were winding down the
Um,
tour, and I want to say it might have been our last full day, or at least last day on
no,
the boat
we
on the
weren't
Nile.
on the boat that day.
Oh, were we in the hotel?
We were back at the
Little blur.
compound, and so the 15th was we went to the King's Chamber in the Great Pyramid, and then
That
we
was
went,
our last full day.
yeah, and then we were back, and then we went to dinner in the city somewhere. I forget where it was, but we, and I say we because the other part of the story that we're leaving out just for clarification is the synchronicity of life. My roommate that I was staying with
Right.
in the boat
James, right?
and in the compound, we had the exact same birthday. Not the same year, but we had
Yeah.
the same birthday. So we were like, what are the odds of that? And we had just
Yeah.
met, and he lives, last I heard, in Perth, Australia. And
Okay.
so happy birthday to him.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I'll have to send you the pictures because you're right. I do have pictures of both of you bending over the birthday cake, blowing out candles. It was quite the
but
cake too. It was
yeah,
beautiful. The hotel did a great job, or restaurant, whichever it was. But yeah, no, that was I have to say, truly an epic journey going through Egypt. Now, when you were there, did you experience any past lives coming through of being in Egypt?
I will say when we did, I want to say, was it Aswan, where we
Oh,
all
the
stood where the light beamed on our faces and just whitewashed us?
yeah, the light or was that yeah, it was one of the temples. I think it was at Karnak, if I'm not
It
mistaken.
could have been Karnak,
Yeah, and it was like a
but
light activation. I mean,
Yeah,
that
and
beam of light comes through because they're sun temples, so it was strategically put so that it would come through. And did you get any photographs of yourself in that light? That
I
was truly
did. And one of the
whoa.
things that I always found was interesting about it is when we stand in the sun, we start to sweat and feel the heat of the sun. But when in that moment where it was hitting my face, I was noticing how I was feeling cooler than the ambient temperature. And I was like, this is kind of strange. And so it's like, I start, now I think about it, I wonder now, was that truly the sun beaming down through, or was it, you know, another source of light? Or here's a question that'll really boggle everybody's mind: was it the energy of the true sun? And that's why it felt different than the heat of the ambient temperature being in Egypt,
Interesting.
because there are frequencies that people are putting up to try and block the full essence of the sun, and
Gosh,
we
yeah.
need the sun. And
Yeah.
so it's kind of interesting, you have to sit and wonder, why are they trying to limit our exposure to the sun when the sun is crucial to us? And that's just, things that I think about. And so, my mind is always wandering through things, and the way my mind works is I could be pondering that, and then like 2 seconds later I'll be like, oh wait, wow, it's really windy, and I'll totally forget what I was pondering.
Yeah. You got a busy mind, Michael. It would be a guess.
Yeah.
It's interesting. After we got back, and on this journey I've been on, I did some research around the mystery schools in Egypt and how the Great Pyramid was part of those mystery schools. And what's interesting is that every single temple that we went into was originally part of the mystery schools, and that there was a certain alignment that they would use to have a different activation in each temple. And it actually was in parallel to your kundalini going up and down your body. It was really interesting, jumping into that rabbit hole with some of the things that we experienced in Egypt. But
Well, yeah, there was another interesting thing that I don't know if I've ever talked about on the show with you. Here is I remember the first night when we were on the boat, and everybody's like, wow, I'm feeling really tense or really tired, and or something, going on. And I was like, well, I do Reiki. Do you need energy work?
I remember you asking people.
And the thing that surprised me is I hadn't done Reiki work for like 2, 3 years prior to that. I kind of like turned it off and was like, nope, I'm not doing this anymore, because I had a bad experience with it, and was like, nope, I'm not making a practice of this. I'll just do it for myself or family. And I don't know what it was on the boat, but I think, at the time, I don't know what it is, but now I feel like it was the Nile. Being on the Nile was like
Powerful.
activating something in me. And it was like, if I didn't get this
Same.
energy out,
Mhm.
I was going to be like energy overload. And so I just needed to share it. And it just so happened somebody was like, hey, my arm is starting to hurt. I must have overdone something. And I'm like, oh, here, let me. And it's like the Nile
Mhm.
was kind of directing me through. And it was kind of humorous because every night we were on the Nile, we'd finish eating dinner, and then I would start making the rounds, and it
You
like
did, and you'd
became,
go behind everybody's chair. I remember that now.
yeah, and it was like, yeah, it became like, our little tradition of,
Hmm.
we would have cart races during the day, and We'd have fun, exploring during the day, and at night the tradition was we eat dinner and Michael goes around, does his thing, and everybody's ready for the
It
next
was
day.
magical. It was magical, truly. What was your favorite part of the trip?
I would have to say two things actually. Aside, well, I mean, the obvious is hanging out with everybody and meeting everyone, is the
Yeah, it was a
ultimate
good group.
favorite. But if I was to single out like two moments that would be my favorite, one was seeing the sunrises and the sunsets,
How
in
about the
Egypt.
sunrise at Philae, the Temple of Isis
Yeah.
on Philae? Yeah. Wow.
And, and the sunsets on the Nile were really nice. But one of the other moments actually that kind of sticks out in my mind, oh man, I literally just had it and now it's like disappeared from my head. Give me a second.
I'm glad I'm not the only one.
I know the feeling.
Yes, huh? Oh, goodness.
Oh, going through, and visiting that one area we were in, and then William like gathered us all up and goes, "Hey, if you guys discreetly take photos, but promise you won't share them till after this is publicly announced. They found this new room and we can go in and see it if you guys want." And we were like, "Oh yeah." So we got to see in one of the temples an area that was recently excavated, and we were commenting how brightly
Not
painted.
remembering this. What
Oh
temple?
yeah,
Do you remember?
it was like the middle of the week. I don't remember exactly where we were, but we were granted special permission and we went in, and I remember having my phone out taking all these photos like of almost every inch because I'm like, this is,
Was that the Temple of Sekhmet
it
on
might have
Karnak?
been.
And there's a big statue of Sekhmet carved, and that's all that's in there. It's a very small temple, and we had to get special permission to go in because it was always locked. And we went
um
in.
Well, that was a different section, I think, than where we were taking all the going in. We went into this room, and it was a small room, but all four sides were these brightly painted hieroglyphs. And then the ceiling was painted too. And so it's like we got to see it. And then it's kind of funny that you say this, the statue of Sekhmet, because every time I see the statue of Sekhmet, keep calling it Ptah and say the statue of Ptah.
Yes,
And
yeah, which I believe they were married, if I'm not mistaken, Sekhmet and Ptah.
I think they were actually, yeah.
Yeah. I've got a golden Sekhmet behind me. She's right there. Of course, it's a little distance away. But when we would have our show, Alex, if you remember, and I would come on your show and talk about Egypt, we would get growling
You
with
did.
my background. Yeah. And I think it was
Oh
Sekhmet letting
yeah.
us know she's there. Yeah.
Well, it depends on the
Have to dig
growl.
that one out.
If it was a feline growl, that'd be Sekhmet. If it was a canine growl, that could be Anubis.
Anubis, yeah. Do you remember when we were at Karnak in the Isle of the Sphinxes? And I walked away from the group and went over to one of the Sphinxes and then turned to the right. There was sitting a live jackal, like this far away from me. We looked into each other's soul. It was one of the most outrageous experiences. And he stood there. I stood there. We looked at each other. And then he gently nodded his head and he turned around and he just trotted away. And that's when I motioned to Emil, and I'm just like, over here, I just saw a jackal, and he goes crazy. He goes, oh, it's Anubis is here. Anubis is granting us a
Yeah.
visit, paying our respects, and oh, it was hysterical. But yeah, that was a very cool experience to eye with Anubis. Yeah.
Yeah. And Egypt, I know we mentioned this before on here, but I just want to stress it is a land where you walk on the land and you cannot help but realize the sand you're stepping on is the same. I mean, it's not exactly the same, but you can picture it being the same sand that the Egyptians of the ancient times were walking on. They walked this path, they walked through this area, and so it's like you feel like you're there just by being on the land. And it's something that, you know, other places that I've been to, like example here in the US, you walk and you're like, yeah, this is nice nature. You don't think about who walked there really before you. But Egypt is one of those places you can't help but go,
Mhm.
this is where the ancients walked.
Yeah, I always refer to it as the motherland, the land of Kemet, which was the ancient word for Egypt, which means the black soil. It's a powerful, powerful place for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
But one thing that I've learned over the past, like, not calendar year, but year of looking at things is I had a guest on my show, George Mitrovic, and he's a prolific author. He's written like almost two, 300
Excuse me.
books, and he still has a whole lot of books to write. But he pointed out we have history so wrong in our
Excuse me.
world, and one of the facets that is so wrong is we think of America as being only 2, 3, maybe 400 years old, but we're actually as old as Britain. And how he showed and proved that beyond, the map of the Mississippi Valley being on Phoenician coins is when we were in the Bronze Age where we needed copper. The highest amount of copper is here in America. So they came here to mine the
Ah,
copper for the Bronze Age. And then when they left and went to the Iron Age, they left America because they no longer needed the copper. So that's where our history then goes blank, so to speak,
Mhm.
until they return and rediscover the land. But we actually have history of footsteps being here in BC,
Mhm.
makes us as old as Britain, but it's only because we were a mining colony. So it's like I think history views it as we don't need to care, about mining colonies. We'll focus on when actual civilization was there. And I kind of go, hey, that is civilization. Those minings count. And so we
Yeah.
are as old as.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Michael, in New Hampshire, I'm in Massachusetts here in US, and New Hampshire is America's Stonehenge.
Mhm.
So there are remains that go that far back. So yeah, we have
Yeah,
it
there's
wasn't Columbus that discovered us.
no, when they found in like Oklahoma is Knights Templars markings, there's
Mhm.
Egyptian
You must
markings.
follow Scott Walter, do you?
I do.
I do. Love him.
I had him on my show actually.
I thought I saw that, Michael. Yes, yes. He must have been a
Yeah.
great guest.
And I
Yes.
met him in person when he was doing the Rockwall episode in Texas. I got to meet him, and so that was a lot of
Yeah.
fun. And I mean, history itself, I mean, we have, and I'm going to mention part of our history is being currently blocked from us, and it's been proven that it's being blocked from us. Is anyone who's visited the Grand Canyon knows there's a section of the Grand Canyon that's not allowed to be researched, traveled through, or even photographed, really. And the reason is because in the caves in that area is ancient Egyptian
Yeah.
writings, monuments,
Statuary. Hmm.
statues.
Hmm.
There's even predating pre-Columbian artifacts being
Crazy.
found there.
What are your thoughts about that? About how that, how did that happen? Do you think the Egyptians did in fact travel here to
Oh,
the
absolutely.
Americas? Hmm.
I think every culture has been around here, and that's just another episode of us being older than, what people want us to be. And I think, you know, what it boils down to really is academia is calling all the shots, and they're sitting there and they're like, hey, we have trained thousands of people now, maybe close to hundreds of thousands of people, maybe, that this is the history, this is the timeline, this is who was here, this is how it happened. And if you're coming in now and telling us this is all wrong, that is so much stuff that we need to redo, relearn. And academia is like, we're not putting the money into it. We're not rewriting textbooks. We're not making authors and professors and teachers who staked their reputation on this and going, nope, we're not going to tarnish them. So we're going to make this disappear.
Yeah. And
And
Michael, don't you think also there's a piece of the governments that are involved in this as well? Like, for instance, covering up the Grand Canyon, big cave center there with all of that in there. They have supposedly they have details that are there that are black ops helicopters that fly through and protect that area, and no one's allowed to go near it.
yeah, there's the Smithsonian controls it, and
Oh, okay. Oh,
they answer to the
interesting.
government. And
Hmm.
the Smithsonian, I don't like, using their title, because there are people that work there that are genuinely there to preserve the history and to share the history. But then there's the elements that are there that are like in the basement where they're like, we have to lock this up. Nobody can know about this. This goes against what we want people to know
Their
in our
narrative. Yeah.
narrative. And so they will suppress it and make it disappear. And a famous example of that is there were red-headed giants found in Nevada. It was in the newspapers. Well, those giants' bodies were hauled off by the Smithsonian. And the Smithsonian, if you say, hey, where's the giants from Nevada? They'll say, we never took any. We don't have them.
Oh, no
And
kidding.
the people in Nevada were like, the people that heard the stories from their grandparents, because this was like the 1800s, are like, our family knows that the Smithsonian took the bodies. We know they have them there.
Yeah.
That's the stories we've been told. And why would our parents lie to our grandparents lie to our
Right.
parents and lie to us? It's like, that's a really good point. Why would they? And if it was one family or two families, you can go, oh well, that's just family lore. That's just them having fun with you. But there were several families, and it was in a newspaper. And then the stories disappeared and they were never mentioned again. And so it's like the mind will go, it's so much easier to believe if we were to get access to the basement of the Smithsonian, the true basement.
Kind of
It's
like the
probably like
Vatican, huh?
the national treasure trove in the
Uh-huh.
movie type room full of all these artifacts and history that we've been deprived of. And so it's like, yeah, I mean, it's great that they're showing history, and I've never actually stepped foot in the museum because to me it's a hard thing because it's like I want to support the preservation of history, but I also don't want to support the suppression of history. And so I'm like, if I go to the Smithsonian, which one am I doing? And it's both. And it's like, uh. And so, yeah, it's hard for me to go, yeah, let's go support this
Yeah,
group
kind of
because I'm,
knowing the background. Michael, do you know, this is, I don't know if I saw this, if it's true or not. Were there any photographs taken within that cave of any of the Egyptian relics and icons and whatnot?
I don't know if there were photographs because you got to remember these caves were discovered in the 1800s,
Oh, it was that early. Okay. I didn't know if
early
after the fact, if
1900s.
anyone got in there.
And so photographs wouldn't, they were too expensive to just go willy nilly
At
taking
that time.
photos here and there. It's
Mhm.
like, and people didn't travel with cameras either. So you would have to pay for someone to come and photograph, and you're not going to bring them on an expedition when you don't know what you're going to find. You'll wait until you find it. And then the people that found it were like, people would never believe this. So they didn't, I don't think they did take photos really because, I mean, let's think about this. You're in the Grand Canyon really is in kind of a desert slash plains area, so it could easily be mistaken for somewhere else. And so if you took a photograph in a cave and said, "Wow, here's this statue, let's say of Anubis," well, someone's going to go, "Well, that's a great, hey, where's that cave in Egypt?" No, it's not Egypt; it's the U.S. No, Egypt never came to the U.S. So you're either putting this statue, over another photograph, or it's in Egypt. So people didn't want to risk their reputations
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
and, risk their funding. And so
Yeah.
there would be
Yeah.
no visual evidence because, yeah, it's too risky. If the government was to say that's not real, they'll pull your funding and then you're done. And you didn't get
Projects.
to
Yeah.
explore everything.
Mhm.
And
Interesting.
I know somebody who has walked through the area. He had special clearance to be in there. Well, I don't know them personally. I know of them and know
Mhm.
people who do know him personally. And he talks about how they've seen circular objects on the ground of a metal, but that metal is not an earthbound metal. They
Wow.
don't know what type of metal it is, where it really came from. So there's so much stuff in the Grand Canyon that not only would rewrite our history, but it would rewrite how long have we been visited and who really
Mhm.
was here before we were here. And so there are elements, and there's also talks of areas in the Grand Canyon and areas in Colorado, and I think California might be as well, and Arizona, that area has a, and Oregon with, or not Oregon, Mount Shasta area,
Yeah.
that there are
California.
caves that if you go in, like if you were to go all the way through, you would end up in inner Earth.
Oh, I
And
believe that. Yeah.
so
Hmm.
those are
Even
another
in
reason.
Antarctica. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's another reason those areas are kind of blocked off or heavily patrolled is they don't want one inner Earth coming out, but they also don't want us going in and then coming out and saying, "Look at what I saw," and it's on
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
like,
Well, now there's a big hubbub going on right now. I'm sure you might have seen it with Linda Moulton Howe, and she had done some research around Antarctica. and that exact thing, that there's an inner world within, underneath the ice forms, and that she supposedly has seen it, and they're trying to shut her down now about that. Are you familiar with any of that? It's just kind of
I
come out. At
am.
least I saw it on my feed.
Yeah, and it's been actually, she's not the first to talk about it. It's
Right. Well,
just
Admiral Byrd.
they don't want it out. And yeah, Admiral Byrd wrote about it and published his account of it. And Germany in the 40s was in Antarctica and they found the same thing. And a lot of people have been to Antarctica and they will tell you that when you're there, when they're researching, they are given routes, and there's a huge area on the routes where they say helicopters won't fly, airplanes won't fly because of weather conditions. And what it
Mm.
really is where the hole is that you can enter that Admiral Byrd used. And so they
And
don't
he
want,
flew through too, right, Michael? Wasn't
yeah,
it
he
him that
landed
was
in
in a
there.
plane? Yeah, yeah. Wow.
And so it's like, how do you keep people from believing the stories is you keep taking photographs of ice fields and they'll never believe there's a hole in the ice and
But
everything
don't they
is.
say don't they say there are UFOs under the ice as well?
Oh yeah, there's UFO bases.
Basis. Yeah. Yeah.
Places,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, Alex. Yeah, definitely.
Well, and
yeah.
one thing I'll and for everybody who's sitting there and saying, oh, you can't make photos show anything but the truth, I'll will ask this of Alex, and then I'll ask Kathy this question. Alex, when you see photographs of the pyramids of Egypt on the Giza Plateau, how many pyramids do you see?
Um, I don't know. I'm trying to think. I'm sure there's quite a few. I don't know how many, but
Well, and I'm talking about like in the history books and like the travel
well,
books.
no, I wouldn't know. It's a long time since I've had to look at anything like that. But in my mind, I
Would you say
would
three?
say, I don't know, quite a few. All I could imagine more than that. In
Yeah.
the pictures,
So
I
I
remember
remember. Yeah. The reason
there's
I say that is
quite a
I
few dotted
remember.
about 6, 7.
So you say 6 or 7. Okay. Kathy, when we were in Egypt, how many pyramids are on the Giza Plateau?
Oh, such a trick question, you. Of course, in your mind's eye, the biggest and most obvious are the three, with the Great Pyramid being the biggest. But there are other pyramids there as well, which are smaller.
There was
Mhm.
9,
Ah,
and they all lined up to Orion, and the 3 big pyramids are Orion's belt.
Belt,
And
yeah, that I know.
so when you look online at the pyramids or you look in history books in our age, I remember the photographs being 3. And I remember when we stepped foot on the Giza plateau, I don't know if it was you or I mentioned to someone, I was like, there's more than 3 pyramids here. How in
Yeah.
the and I even said to William, I said, it's so wild that I've only ever seen photos of 3 pyramids and there's
You're right,
9.
Michael. Yeah, yeah.
And how is that possible? And William goes, it's all in how you take the photo. So I actually took time and figured out what angle did everybody have to stand in to get
Oh,
just the
interesting.
pyramids. And I
yeah.
was like, I got the photo. And then I look at it, I'm like, yeah, this is the photo. And so this is what the history books use. They turn the camera angle for their narrative of 3. Meanwhile, the other 6 that had like Ra's sun ship and other really cool finds there are ignored because they're small. And so they're like, no, we're not going to mention those. Those aren't important enough. These are the important ones. And it's like, I guess because archaeologists were in a size matters kind of mode. But
Could be. Well, the other thing, Michael, I think is being discovered is, that they were actually oscillators of energy. The pyramids. And then where are you? Have you been following any of the SARS? Uh, um, what do you call it? X-raying of the the Giza plateau underneath the pyramids.
I'm familiar with, and I've seen some
It's an
pictures
Italian
and
team, and yeah, yeah.
stories where. So to paint the picture, people have to understand the. So you have Giza Plateau here, where the pyramids are. Right in front of it is the Great Sphinx, which, if
Exactly.
you take another angle, you don't even know that the pyramids are around the Sphinx, and it makes everything appear far apart in that region when they're literally next to each other.
Yeah, they are.
And there are signs in front of the Sphinx where they have little hooks for boats to moor to.
Yeah, the
And
Nile actually
so,
came up to the base of the Sphinx.
yeah, and you think, why are there boat moorings on the Sphinx? Because there's no water over here. But in ancient times, before they moved to the Nile, it did flow there. And so water would be readily there. And so it's not hard to imagine having a tunnel under the Sphinx, not only for the Hall of Records, but to transfer water into the pyramid to run it as a power generator.
Mm.
And, the desert land, with certain energy may have been the greenery that we've seen photos of and can't imagine because the desert overtook it. Well, how did the desert overtake it? Could it be because they moved the river that they lost their source of power, and hence the desert overtook? Makes sense. But I often, though, wonder, you know, we look today and we go, yeah, we need to move, like, let's say we wanted to move the Mississippi River. It would take several engineers, several years to figure out how to move this river, if it's even possible. But in ancient times, they had the technology to do it. And we envision it faster, and because we envision them having knowledge and technology we don't have, we don't really know how long it took, but we can take the fact that one of the stories is the Nile River had to be moved so they could build the Temple of Isis in Philae.
That was the Aswan Dam. Yeah, they actually did
And
take it apart like a puzzle, and then yeah, built it onto Philae, or moved it, I should
so,
say.
how many, years is it between the pyramid and the Sphinx
Mm,
from that temple that could tell you how long it took, to
I can't
change the
imagine.
route of that river? And I don't know, because we don't even know the actual age of the pyramids. And the other fact that people don't realize is, because we set off nuclear weapons and used them, we have altered the carbon structure of our planet. So, I was talking with the scientists, and I said, why don't we ever hear anymore really of carbon dating being the main source for learning how old things are. And he goes, I'll be honest with you, the nuclear tests destroyed the accuracy of carbon dating. So
Oh my
we can't
God.
use carbon dating anymore
That makes sense.
as a
Wow.
major, way of determining age. And I
Yep.
was like, oh, so now we have to think, we think we're the only ones that have set off nukes. But if you go back in history, there's evidence of catastrophes of like a nuclear scale
Yes.
sitting in the
Yep.
dirt.
Mm.
And so, if that's true, all of our dates in history are wrong. And we also, there's another facet that people don't realize is we are basing everything on the Gregorian calendar system.
Yes.
But there was the Julian calendar before
Yep.
that. There was the lunar
Yeah.
calendar before that.
Yep.
So who converted the lunar into the Julian into the Gregorian? Did they even bother? Or did they just say, oh, what
This is
was
it.
year 0 was really year 500, but we didn't want to calculate, so we just made it 0. And we're going to make this story being the start of time is this
Mm.
moment, and everything goes forward from there. And so we don't know if, say, 10,000 BC is really 10,000 BC, or is it 100,000 BC, 200,000 BC? Are we so much older
I think
because
we are.
we're
Absolutely.
not using we didn't transfer and calculate in the different calendars and the different year structures, because on a lunar year calendar, there's only 360 days in a year, every year.
Mm-hmm.
In the Julian calendar and Gregorian calendar, there's 365, but the Gregorian took and said, well, there is one extra day really because of how this works out, and time wise with these calculations. So we really have the leap year where we have 366 days. They say that makes up that missing day from the Gregorian and the lunar calendar system. And so does it? Who knows? We don't really know, because we don't know how long everything really was. And some calendars talk about a 13-month, other calendars talk about a 12-month lunar cycle. So we don't really even know our true calendar system for ourselves. And so when we age things, we're not, we're aging them based on today's perception, not the true time, so to speak. And I know we're getting close to the 2 hours, and I'm seeing Bill has a
Yeah,
question.
yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah, he has a
Yeah.
question. Very good.
Right, yeah. Where is he? There he is. Yeah, we're all getting close. Didn't realize it was that late. Does Michael believe there are many pyramid structures on other planets?
Good question, Bill.
Ooh, I misread that question. That's an even better question than I first read. As I read it. So there are pyramid structures on Mars. There are pyramid structures on the moon. And so, yes, on other planets, I've seen the photographs of them. Now, planets like Venus and Mercury, where they're so close to the sun and with the atmosphere, we don't have much structures or visual capabilities of seeing the surface. And from my personal memory of when I'm on those planets, I don't ever remember actually stepping foot on the surface. I think it's all underground. So are there pyramid structures there on Venus? I think there might be, but they're underground. And as strange as that sounds to do, in Alaska and Antarctica, there are pyramids under the ice. And so it's not hard to build them underground. And so I think it's more unusual to have them above ground. And Saturn has pyramids underground, from what I recall, with operating in those areas. See, this is why I love when I get certain questions, because it unlocks memory that normally I don't have. And so it's like I can
Interesting.
be like, yeah, I remember this and I remember this. But if you were to put me in like 20 minutes from now, I'll be like, I said that? What?
No kidding. Yeah, he added that. How about in the oceans? Pyramids.
So the interesting thing about our oceans
Mm.
is I don't know how many people remember, but Japan has huge structures in the oceans off their shores that they have found, and they are clearly cut. And if you go by, I believe it's Cuba and the Caribbean, there are structures where you can see what looks like roadways have been mapped out in under the water in the Atlantic. And so that's what got people believing, oh, this is Atlantis in the Atlantic, and oh, this is Lemuria in the Pacific, because that's where we were told they were. But in actuality, the interesting thing about Lemuria is, yes, it's underwater, and part of it, I believe, is by Japan, but part of it is above water, but we changed its name. So Hawaii is part of Lemuria, Easter Island is part of Lemuria, and the Ring of Fire is Lemuria underwater reacting to conditions under there. And so we have all types of civilizations that have been lost away. And you go by Africa, and there are parts of Africa that are under the water in the Mediterranean Sea. And they say, oh, yeah, that's, Alexandria, for example, Cataclysm. This is where it's buried under the ocean or this Mediterranean Sea. Or, oh, here's this, land mass by Italy that's underwater. And so there's all kinds of structures under the water. And I think that's why we don't publicly explore our ocean anymore, because there's so many things down there that we can't explain away, that they say it's just easier not to allow it to happen.
There you go. It is the
Well,
new
guys,
frontier, though.
we we come to our time, more or
Oh,
less,
I don't
two
get to
minutes.
answer
You
Leslie,
want to, yeah, answer Leslie. I was just going to say that. Yeah, that's a good question.
because I like
Michael, what
these
is
types
your
of
view?
questions.
Yeah, there you go.
What is my view on the Bermuda Triangle, and why do vessels go missing there?
Good question,
So
Leslie.
the Bermuda Triangle, and there are so many triangles around our planet, but this is one that gets the most coverage because of these, is there's an energy there, and there actually is, I believe, an underwater base that's attached to one of the corners of the Bermuda Triangle.
And isn't there a pyramid there too?
I believe that there is.
There is, yeah.
And so
Interesting.
vessels can go missing there because they could be caught up in a portal that opened to allow a vessel to leave that base. And so they got sucked in. And that's why we don't have a trace of them. Now,
Mhm.
when it comes to the air, you have to realize I love how our government uses these, initials to explain things, where we have UFOs, which is unidentified flying objects. Okay, I get that. But because it's underwater, it's a USO, not a UFO, which is underwater submerged object.
Oh,
And then it
yeah.
was UFO became an unknown aerial phenomenon, UAP. I'm like, let's just stick with UFO.
Yeah, please.
And so the energies, when certain energies activate, the portals activate. And so the ships come out of the water and disappear through the portal in the air. Well, if you got, let's say the famous Navy, planes that were flying in the 40s that
Oh, yeah.
disappeared without a trace.
Yeah.
If a UFO left the water and left, our atmosphere, so to speak, through of the portal, those planes could have been close enough that they got sucked into the portal and
Interesting.
are
That
no
makes
longer
sense.
there.
Mm-hmm.
And there is an account of a pilot, and I'll make this story really short, is he got caught in a visual portal and he took off with enough gas to make a short trip, and he ended up landing with almost no gas in his tank. And according to the flight towers, he was several hours on what should have been like a 30-45 minute trip, I believe. And so there was no way he had the fuel to do this trip and land, but he did, and he landed off course of where he was intending. And so he had to have traveled through something, and the portal activated somehow. The conditions were right to open it, and that's what happened to him. And that's what he accounts to, is he'll say, I went through a portal. And
Interesting.
it's the only thing that makes sense to me as a pilot,
Yeah.
how I made this, what seemed to me being a short trip that was hours long, without the actual fuel capacity in my plane to make that journey.
It's interesting.
So
Wow.
something to think about for everybody.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
thank you. You've given us a lot to think about, Michael.
Hmm.
It was a pleasure. Thank you. And happy birthday again, by the way. Enjoy the rest of the day. I hope you get something fun going
Yeah,
on.
brilliant.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I
many happy
do have a
returns.
few.
Hmm. Who we got? Who we
um,
got next week, Kathy?
Next week, we
Always,
have
I
a
forget.
mutual friend of Michael and I's, Kelly Schutz. She's going to be on. She's a phenomenal woman, experiencer. I mean, she's a dynamo. So yeah, she'll come on, and that'll be fun. So yeah, and then
Ooh, good thing I
after,
Okay.
went first.
Okay.
what's that, Michael?
That's a good thing I went first. She's a hard act to follow.
Oh, I tell her you said that. Oh, funny. No, I'm looking forward to it. Her and I become
Well,
friends. So we've
I'll
had a
have
few
to write
chats
that one
about
down.
her. Yeah, I'll send you her bio. It's quite a bio.
It
Okay.
is.
Yes, yes, yeah. She's
Okay.
remarkable. So that'll be
Yeah,
fun.
I look forward to
But
that.
Michael,
Yeah, I
thank
don't
you
remember
so
seeing it.
much.
I don't remember. I don't remember seeing that name. Yeah. Thanks, Michael.
Yeah,
Thank
I know.
you.
And thank you
Most
everybody
enjoyable.
for tuning in. We had a nice game tonight.
Yeah.
Good questions too.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And you're welcome, Leslie. I saw her comment. Thank
Yes.
you. So I was just
Yeah.
saying,
Yeah. You're getting
I've
some
seen
great
it.
thank yous there. Yeah. No, it
Oh
was a
well,
great
guys.
night, Michael. Thank you. So
Yeah.
go and
Terrific.
enjoy the rest of your special
Excellent.
day.
I will.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hope to see you again.
Oh, you just let me know when, and we'll make
All
it
right.
happen.
Will do.
All
Thank you,
right.
Michael. Take
Thank
Fantastic.
care.
you.
All right. I'll see you Thursday, Kathy.
Yeah.
Thursday.
Yeah.
Yeah. Soon comes around, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. well, we'll get out of here. See you later, Michael. Thanks a lot.
Good
Thank
night.
you. Good night, everyone.
Hmm.